Welcome to the modern city, where dreams go to thrive, or to pay $5 grand a month for a broom closet with a sink. But how did we get here? Why do we live stacked on top of each other like sardines in concrete cans? Why do we obey traffic lights but ignore people playing ukuleles in public? Today, we're taking a wild ride through history, from ancient mud brick villages to glassy skyscrapers, to uncover how the rise of cities and complex societies gave birth to social hierarchies and norms, and how those hierarchies still shape everything, from who gets power to who gets blamed when the copier breaks. Let's dive in. Part 1. Welcome to the Cradle of Civilization. Let's rewind to ancient Mesopotamia around 3500 BCE, a time when humans collectively decided, you know what sounds fun? Living really close to each other and inventing taxes. Mesopotamia, literally the land between the river, refers to the fertile region between the Tigris and Euphrates. This land was ridiculously good for farming, and thanks to irrigation, humans could grow food way more efficiently. That surplus food changed everything. Instead of everyone having to farm, now people could specialize. Some baked bread, some made pottery, some wrote in cuneiform, and some bossed everyone else around. This shift led to the world's first cities, places like Uruk, Ur, and Nippur. These weren't just clusters of huts. They were bustling urban centers with massive temples, city walls, markets, and administrative buildings. And with cities came something else: complex societies. A complex society means organized government, laws, religion, writing, trade, labor specialization, and most importantly for today's story, social hierarchy. Part 2. The birth of social hierarchy. In ancient Mesopotamia, society wasn't a flat playing field. It was a pyramid, and not the fun kind with tombs and mummies. At the top of the pyramid was the king, often claiming divine support for his rule. Below him were priests, who served as middlemen between the people and the gods. Then came merchants, scribes, artisans, farmers, and finally, at the bottom, laborers and slaves. This structure wasn't just for show, it was how society functioned. Each class had specific duties, expectations, and limitations. A priest could lead rituals and interpret omens. A merchant could trade goods but wouldn't dare challenge the king. A farmer worked the land, paid taxes, and prayed their house didn't flood. And a slave? They were property. No rights, no status, no choice. This hierarchy wasn't random. It was seen as ordained by the gods. The ziggurats, those massive step temples that towered over Mesopotamian cities, weren't just religious centers. They symbolized the connection between the divine and the elite, and by extension, the justification for who held power. Part 3. Norms, the invisible rules. As societies became more complex, people needed rules, both spoken and unspoken, to keep things from collapsing into chaos. So alongside laws, societies developed norms, unspoken social expectations that govern daily life. These told you how to dress, how to behave, who you could marry, and even who could speak first in a conversation. For example, if you were a slave, you didn't speak unless spoken to. If you were a priest, you better follow all the ritual cleanliness rules or the gods might smite you. If you were a woman from the elite class, you dressed modestly and didn't hang out at the market unless you wanted to scandalize your family. And just in case you forgot the rules, they wrote them down. The Code of Hammurabi from around 1754 BCE lists hundreds of laws, often with very specific and very brutal consequences. If a builder builds a house and it collapses and kills the owner, the builder shall be put to death. That's one way to enforce building codes. But even more important than law was the assumption that everyone had a place. Your status, noble, priest, commoner, or slave, shaped your entire life. Your job, your relationships, your chances of justice, all of it. Part 4. Cities spread. So did hierarchies. The Mesopotamians didn't keep cities to themselves. All over the world, urban centers popped up, and almost all of them followed a similar pattern. In Egypt, you had pharaohs who weren't just kings, they were living gods. In the Indus Valley, cities like Mohenjo-Daro were planned on grids with sewage systems. In ancient China, dynasties built walled cities with strict social roles and ancestor worship. In Mesoamerica, civilizations like the Maya had kings, priests, laborers, and slaves too, along with grand pyramids and ritual sacrifice. Everywhere cities rose, so did hierarchies. Why? Because organizing large numbers of people requires structure. You need someone to manage irrigation, distribute grain, lead armies, judge disputes. That structure inevitably led to tiers, and once tiers exist, people at the top work hard to stay there. Part 5. Why social hierarchies work and also don't. Social hierarchies do serve purposes. They bring order. They allow complex tasks to get done. Ancient cities built canals, temples, palaces, and roads, none of which happens without leadership and labor coordination. They also create stability. When everyone knows their role, there's less daily chaos. That doesn't mean life was fair, but it was predictable. But hierarchies also entrench inequality. Once someone has power, they tend to rewrite the rules to keep it. Over time, those in power claim they deserve it, by birth, by wealth, by divine will, by education, or just by being the loudest in the room. And this legacy continues. Part 6. From ancient cities to feudal castles to modern metropolises. Fast forward to medieval Europe. After Rome fell, cities shrank and societies reorganized into feudalism, another lovely pyramid. Kings, nobles, knights, peasants. In many places, especially in Europe and Asia, people believed your place in the social order was God-given. Questioning it wasn't just rude, it was heresy. But cities returned and grew during the Renaissance, the age of exploration, and especially the Industrial Revolution. Urban centers exploded with factories, railroads, and tenement housing. New forms of hierarchy developed. Now it wasn't just nobility or priesthood. It was capital, class, and industry. Factory owners replaced kings, managers replaced priests, laborers were still, well, laborers. Social norms shifted too. In industrial cities, being respectable meant wearing certain clothes, acting a certain way, attending certain churches. Social pressure did a lot of the policing that laws didn't need to. Part 7. Why this still matters. So what does all this mean for us? Understanding the origins of cities and hierarchies helps us understand why society functions and malfunctions the way it does. Our institutions, our governments, our workplaces, they're all built on layers of historical precedent. Our modern cities still reflect ancient patterns of organization, division, and control. We still follow norms that evolved in ancient times about gender roles, authority, status, and behavior, even when they no longer make sense. And while hierarchies can create order, they also create imbalance. The more rigid the system, the harder it is for people to move, grow, or challenge injustice. That's why knowing this history isn't just interesting, it's necessary. It gives us the power to recognize patterns and, when needed, break them. Conclusion: the city is us. Cities didn't just change where we live, they changed how we live and who we are. They gave us incredible achievements: art, science, philosophy, government, Beyonce. But they also gave us inequality, injustice, and office cubicles. Every time you cross a street, pay rent, or complain about someone cutting in line, you're participating in a system that started over 5,000 years ago, with a few farmers, some clay bricks, and an idea. Maybe, just maybe, we're better off living together. Even if it means traffic jams, taxes, and zoning laws. If you like learning how ancient history still shapes your daily life, from the big stuff like power and politics to the weird little rules we never question, then you're in the right place. Stick around because the past has a lot more to say, and it's way messier and funnier than your high school textbook ever let on.